times that I thought were the worst thing that happened to me, I can truly look back and say how grateful I am for those things that happened. I've learned much more in my life from the mistakes I've made than any of the pats on the back that I've gotten from the things that have sometimes just pure luck have gone right. Great advice one time, he said, Jeff, success is where opportunity and hard work meet. I've always prided myself since I'm a young guy, you know, my dad, my grandfather, my family, had a great work ethic, you know, and you know, I'm never the smartest guy you'll ever meet, but, you know, I would just find out what somebody was doing successfully and I would just outwork them.
This is the Aaron Cordovez Show.
All right, Mr. Harris, Mr. Jeff Harris, thank you for coming today. I want to tell you guys, this gentleman has a really intense, varied, and interesting story. A great friend of mine, and just has a really good example, not just in his family and his business, but his personal life. And I just want to bring him on to just talk, just shoot really for a little bit.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff, dude, I want to first in business. I mean, most of this is a business podcast, right? So just let's talk about briefly, like, how did you start in business, and where are you generally at now, so people just get an idea of what you've done.
Okay. Very honestly, my very first business was at 10 years old. I began mowing lawns
Nice.
with my best friend Peter Morris. We started a lawn mowing business, and I'll never forget it. I bought a riding lawnmower for $50 off the neighbor,
What?
and that was all my money I had to go in business. So, in true entrepreneur fashion, the most difficult part was on the way to my very first job. I was going to begin to mow my neighbor's lawn, and I was going to get paid $5 to mow that lawn. And on the way there, the axle broke. Both Peter and I were riding on the lawnmower, and the little rear axle snapped in two. So I'll never forget, I took it down. So this was my first line of credit, was with Mr. Hebden. He owned a little, mower repair shop, and he charged me $10 to re-weld the axle. So not only did I have the $50 investment, I didn't have the $10, and he gave me credit. So that was my first line of credit, was for $10 to fix my lawnmower. So,
But he did it.
yes, he did.
I mean, nowadays I don't even know if that's a business.
Yeah.
Like fixing mow lawnmowers.
Yeah, I mean, there's
don't
still
know.
people out there that'll weld, and that's still a viable industry. But
Hold on, but that was your neighbor's house, so it broke literally from your house to the next door?
yeah, well, again, I grew up 30 miles south of Buffalo, so my next door neighbor was about probably close to an eighth of a mile down the street.
I got
so,
you, okay.
So we were literally riding. Peter was holding the weed whacker, and I'm driving the mower. So that's how we were going to get it down there. I'm sure illegally down the street we were driving our lawnmower. So. But we didn't even make it to our first job before we broke down. So.
Nice. Okay, but
So there's my
was that
first business.
successful though? Did that work out?
Yeah.
You mowed enough lawns to pay
Yeah,
back?
we mowed enough lawns to pay back the debt, and then I'll tell you that my first real introduction to business was the hotel and restaurant business, really the restaurant business, and then I went to college for hotel and restaurant management. And one day I literally had this cognition: what in the world am I doing in this industry? Everybody else in the world wants off on nights, weekends, and holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the restaurant business, that is your busiest time, nights, weekends, and holidays. So I thought, this is an awful idea. And when I was about 19 years old, 20 years old.
And you're in college now?
I'm in college. At 17, I went to Delhi, SUNY Delhi, a small college in upstate New York. And then I lasted through one winter and was like, what the hell am I doing up here? So truth be told is I have enough college credits probably to have 3 degrees, and I have none. And I bounced around, and I answered a blind ad in the newspaper. I had a life-changing event. My girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my son, and I thought, I better get to work and figure out how to pay for diapers. And the reality was...
And that's at 19?
This is now at 20, and my son was born at 20 when I just turned 21. And I answered a blind ad in the newspaper for sales managers wanted. And it was literally to sell satellite dishes door to door. And I started selling satellite dishes door to door. And it's true, man. I honestly swear to God, I think two things that could help every young person. I think everybody should have to work at least a year in the restaurant business, right? It teaches instant rapport and fast on your feet, and there's high levels of stress and getting the order right and that. I love it. And I think everybody should have to spend 1 year doing outside sales door to door. It's some of the best training ground to set me up for my entire life in sales. And to this day, man, I still look back on that as some of the most fun times I ever had. Some people, are incredibly intimidated by it. I was like, man, I get to meet new people every day. My father, my grandfather, they were both entrepreneurs. They owned machining businesses. So precision machining, some of the highlights, my grandfather designed the landing gear that landed the space shuttle, and
What?
Yeah, so crazy.
Wow.
I have a letter signed by the president in 1969, and the return stamp on it says the moon landing. So, I come from a long line of guys that are like, own your own cash register, right? They never told me all the other stuff
How
that
to do
comes
it.
with
Just
that.
do it.
Yeah, just make sure you own the cash register. And but one of the funny parts of that was, I always looked up to my dad and my grandpa because they had the flexibility and the freedom in life. But I drilled a lot of holes in parts growing up as a kid, from the time I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old till, even into college. I'd go home summers with my dad on the weekends, whatever, and I'd be working in a machine shop. And so then I got into outside sales, and I was like, I literally get to talk to people and have a great conversation, oftentimes eat dinner with them, have a drink with them, whatever else.
Yeah, they just invite you to the house. No?
And I get paid for this, right? So when I'm knocking on doors selling satellites, I did this, and then I actually moved to Chattanooga, Tennessee to open up a division of a company. And at the time I was going up there, literally, this is a great part of my personal story. I met a group down here in Tampa, and they hired me, and I was doing quite well selling satellite dishes door to door. And to be quite honest with you, man, it was pure ignorance. They told me to knock 100 doors a day. I would get 20 names. Out of those 20 names, we'd set 5 appointments. 5 appointments would turn into 1 sale. It would actually turn, 2 would be sold, but 1 would get approved for credit. So net. So what I did is I actually went out and just knocked 100 doors and got the 20 names. And then I become the best at it. And I was like, what am I doing so special? Well, then I would go out and train with other people, and I'd find out that they would start at noon and end by 2, and they'd knock 20 doors. And I was like, well, damn, I just kind of did what was on the sheet here. They told me to knock 100 doors, and I knocked 100 doors. So I wasn't doing anything really miraculous. I was just doing what I was told to do, and I became, quite successful at that. And it was.
So you were the top rep. By just doing what they said.
Just what they said.
People often ask me, "Hey, can I sit down with you one-on-one? Let me pick your brain, get whatever info from you on how to sell on Amazon, how to get started." Well, guess what? You can sit one-on-one with me for more than 3 hours on my mini course, aaroncordovez.com/start, and I will sit down with you one-on-one and give you all the info that I think you need to get started on Amazon. Hey, if you've been on Amazon, you have success, it must have come into your mind to see, how much is my business worth? How much could I sell it for today? If you want to get a valuation from us, we know what is very valuable in Amazon companies. Go to aaroncordovez.com/valuation, and we will tell you what we would buy it for. And if we put an offer, we close. And we will close cash up front and a huge back end for you to get money as the brand continues to grow. aaroncordovez.com/valuation.
And so then they quickly decided, they said, listen, we have an opportunity to have this territory up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Dalton, Georgia area, and in North Georgia and South Tennessee there. And they invited me to go up there to be the sales manager and to run the sales.
Was there already an office?
No, we were going up there to establish the office there. We literally got up there. I'll never forget this to the day I die. The guy told me how we're going to go up there like a family, and we're going to get this started, and I'm literally up there the first day, and I'm waking up, and I remember I was walking down the hall from the little continental breakfast, and literally the guy's like, we're having problems at our Louisville, Kentucky office, and we're going to all head up there. But we want you to stay here and get this started. And I was like, what happened to this family? We're getting a house. We're all working together. Like, I have no money. I mean, no money, and I thought this was my big shot in life. I've told my parents, they're like, "Oh, we don't think this is the best idea." No, Mom, you don't understand, Dad. This is my future, and I'm not there 24 hours, and this thing's gone to hell very quickly. But I am not going to turn around and admit that this wasn't the right decision. And I literally had enough money in my pocket. I'll never forget it. I had to cross. I was standing in a Golden Gallon. It's like a 7-Eleven up there, and I'm standing in a phone booth, and I'm literally looking through because now I got to find a place to live.
They didn't give you a place.
No, we were in a hotel. So I'm night number 1 in a hotel, being told that we're starting this deal by day 2. I'm literally...
And they didn't pay for your next hotel. They didn't pay... You don't have nothing. Credit with them, nothing.
Nothing. I had enough money in my pocket. Again, I'm just the ripe old age of 21 at this time. I had enough money in my pocket. I couldn't afford to stay. And I think we're in a La Quinta. And I had to go across the street to, at the time, I don't know if they exist anymore, to an Econo Lodge, because I can still see the sign. It was $19.99. I couldn't afford to stay at the $29.99 hotel. So I crossed the street and went there for $19.99. I had one more night stay. I then looked up. I was standing in a phone booth. I looked up, and I had a deposit coming back from my electric at the my apartment that I had back in Tampa, so I knew that money was coming, and I had a couple bucks in a savings account. I think probably $500, and I literally called my mother to wire me that money, and I went and found this little place, and I'll never forget the name. The lady's name was Noni Shepherd, and she had this little teeny apartment complex that she had behind a popular little watering hole called Bud's on Brainerd Road, and I remember going in there and talking to the lady. And I can still look back, and I remember the rent was $340 a month, and the security deposit was, a month's rent plus, first and last, whatever. And I remember thinking, okay, if I get the electric bill money and that comes on time, but I literally went in there, and she allowed me to have the keys. And the first thing she asked me is, you want the new remodeled that had new linoleum and new carpet with new vertical blinds? That was $360 a month. I have no money to my name, but I'm going to take the upgraded $360.
No, why would you do that? You just wanted it.
I think I wanted the new carpet because I knew I didn't have a bed, so I'd be sleeping on the carpet for the first couple of days. So anyway, it worked out. My mother wired up the little money I had in my account. A couple days later, I got the address. I finally got the check, and she actually allowed to keep the electric in the apartment complex's name until I could afford to get the electric turned over. So, I always believe as an entrepreneur, man, anybody that says that luck doesn't play a part in it. My stepfather, Larry, gave me some great advice one time. He said, Jeff, success is where opportunity and hard work meet, and I've always prided myself since I'm a young guy, my dad, my grandfather, my family, had a great work ethic, and I'm never the smartest guy you'll ever meet, but, I would just find out what somebody was doing successfully, and I would just outwork them, man, and put in more hours, put in more time, and, bang my head against the wall enough times that I learned how to turn right sometimes, but at the end of the day,
so now you're in this place.
Yeah.
You're out of everything.
Yep.
Now you sell a bunch of satellite things right away?
Here's the funny thing. I resorted back to my my hotel and restaurant, so I went and got a job. And, I was raised where if you couldn't afford something, man, you got a job, right? And if you couldn't afford it with that job, you got a second job. And if you couldn't afford it with a second job, you get a third. So I literally went to a place called the Fifth Quarter, a restaurant, and got hired there. I then went down to the Ramada Inn and got a night auditor's job. And I literally began immediately starting to work these two jobs, and then found a local satellite dealer because I really enjoyed that industry.
Oh, because hold on. So they didn't give you still the deal. Didn't they tell you to open up the thing?
They did.
But you went with someone else because they kind of screwed you.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
So I immediately went and started, and this was the funny thing. So I went to go pick up my deposit check. this is where I just look back at life and go, wow, man, how many times was their luck involved? And, a little guardian angel watching over me. There wasn't Cash App back in the day or Zelle. So I went down to the local grocery store and I parked the car. I went inside and I come back out and there's a stream of water running out from underneath my car. And the water pump had gone in my car. So here I am, man, about tears rolling down my face. I'm like, man, when it rains, it pours. But these are the things I look at. I remember going down to the Pep Boys, and the guy literally was supposed to be, whatever, the labor charge was supposed to be $120. I told him my little sob story. The guy fixed the thing. It was just the seal around it, fixed it, and charged me like $40. So by the time I got done, I had enough time to get back and pay the lady my deposit and still fix my water pump to get to my interview for my satellite job the next day. So I ended up within a short amount of time there up in Chattanooga. I had 3 jobs until I got going and rolling in the satellite industry.
And now your child is at home? Or
my son was living with his mother at the time. We were never married and never together. So he was living back here in Spring Hill, Florida, and I was up in Chattanooga and would commute back and forth for my visitation to see him. So I'm now living up in Chattanooga, trying to get a fresh start in life and turn some things around for myself.
It was a fresh, raw start.
Yes. And so, but that was my description of my first 48 hours in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it was a rough go, but it was resilient, and again, a bunch of lucky breaks there, and literally that there from just a few weeks, months in Tampa in the satellite industry. I then began with those large C-band, those 8 and 10 foot dishes in the side of people's yards. That's where I started in the satellite business. And that's what gave me my start in sales and built that little entrepreneurial fire in me. I'm going to fast forward about a year and a half, 2 years. I stayed diligently working in the satellite industry. Then a new satellite dish called Prime Star came out, which was a 1 meter dish on like a lease program. And I started killing it selling that, doing really, really well. And then my cousin and I started a satellite business called Satellite Solutions. And
is that installs? I mean, you like a private label than actual satellite?
So no, we were doing installations of DirecTV and Dish Network satellite dishes. And this began, and he borrowed a credit card. And I think we started the entire business on a borrowed credit card and probably $1,500 to our name on a little used love seat that he had taken out of a college dorm room and a 32-inch big old Sony Trinitron TV of his parents. And that's what we started our satellite business with. And we started out in Lakeland, Florida. And by the time we sold the company, I can remember when we installed our first 10 satellite dishes in a month, and we thought we were pretty hot. And then we got up to 100 in a month, and boy, we thought we were setting world records. And by the time we were done and sold the company in 2005, we were the 6th largest DirecTV dealer in the world.
Really?
And we had about 127 employees, subcontractors. Wow. We had 16 stores across the nation.
So how much did you sell for?
Well, at the time, this is part of my story, but we held the note on the entire company. We sold the company for a little over $5 million.
Nice.
It was nice.
In 2005.
In 2005.
And what was the revenue? You know what the multiple was, like on the either profit or revenue? Or
So at the time, we were doing a little over. So we were doing about 20,000 satellite installations a month. But the difficulty in that industry was, honestly, it's the only business in the world you could stand to lose actually more money than you stood to make. And the reason I say that, the multiple was about 3 times, to answer your question.
Okay. On the profit.
What we're doing of the profit, because the reality was the chargebacks. So you could go install a satellite dish. It had to stay installed and active for 1 year, or they reached back into your bank and took that money back. So it was an awful business model, because it was literally like, here's the deal. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Make sure you're installing more quality customers, but to overcome those chargebacks from last month, you need to get another 1,000 customers just to make up for the chargebacks. So at the end, we were literally installing over 20,000 new customers a month
That's
in the
a
direct. It was a
lot
lot.
of customers.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
we were number 6 in the world and selling the direct TV and that. And honestly, our dear
Were you still
friends,
going
we
door to
thought-
door? Now you're just managing people.
So no, now we're just managing people, and we were our biggest thing was direct mail, Advo direct mail pieces where we were direct mailing it, and then we had 16
That's every door
locations.
direct mail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we would literally hit a location. We had a call center that, the individuals would call into our call center, and you could set your watch by it. Literally 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, the phone would ring off the hook nonstop.
Like, that's lunchtime or what?
No, because that's when the mail dropped. So that was when it would hit the mailboxes, and from Tuesday at 1 o'clock, literally to Thursday at 4, you could set your watch by it, and it would literally stop like they turned off the phones. It was the craziest thing you'd ever seen. But then we had a call center right here in North Tampa that was taking all the inbound calls and then routing them out to our different stores. So at the time we had 16 locations.
Wow.
So all over the U.S. That was installing them. So it would just be basically warehouses and installation centers there.
Okay, so you said there was a story about this $5 million sale.
Yeah, we ended up holding the paper, so we learned a very valuable lesson, and the guys that we sold it to actually bankrupted the business within a year. So we ended up taking a nice little chunk up front, and this residual payment that we were getting, at the time I'm golfing 5 days a week thinking that we're never going to, I was literally contemplating on what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and, golfing here at Avila, 5 days a week, and that was my life. And literally by 2010, this is, by 2008, I'm literally, flat broke, and
because that's 3 years after you sold.
so
Okay, so hold on.
within
So how's
a
this
year-
$5 million? You got $5 million cash, or $5 million was the
No.
total?
5 million was the total,
And how much was up front?
split between my cousin, our silent business partner,
Yeah.
and myself.
Yeah,
And we literally got that split up front, $1 million up front
total.
and literally within 1 year they bankrupt the company and stopped paying and in quarterly we were getting these sizable checks. And then
They keep actually the customers and the business and operations and the staff. They just changed it legally.
legally. And so again, man,
Fuckers. Those contracts, you got to look into them like oh man.
talk about living and learning. So here I am one day wondering what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And very shortly later, I'm figuring out what I'm going to do with, and literally I started Hive, the current company that I own, with my house in foreclosure. I had 5 homes, 2 of the units in the Trump Towers. I invested the money that I did get up front, thought I was doing it intelligently, into real estate, and then hits the 2007, 8, 9. So by 2009, so fast forward, by 2009, I'm literally...
And how old are you? Like what?
So I'm 2000, I'm currently 50 years old, so 2009, so 13, 14, 34 years old-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. I literally go from wondering what I'm going to do the rest of my life with, money and opportunities, investments, to literally I had $5,000 left to my name. I got a check from my previous company. So I had this company called Satellite Solutions, and my cousin was basically running that entire operations and doing that. And then I started within that business, I started a company called Home Technology Solutions. So even for a portion of I split. So I looked like the genius that slid out from underneath this upset with this business, and then we hit the housing decline of 7, 8, 9. And so again, I go further down, in the hole.
So all your real estate's gone. Which all of the money you got up front went to real estate. The other guy screwed you. You $4 million of a note gone, or whatever.
Right. Split between
1.5 or whatever
right.
it was. That's all gone. Your previous business, you did still get checks from them.
So I did.
But it
It was a literally. So this was my home technology business, and I literally had a business partner that I bought him out of the business, and I got one check from one builder for $5,000, and that was literally what I used to brand the company Hive, go in it alone, totally the sole proprietor to do this, and that I started in 2009. And deposited my first check into the bank in June, July-ish of 2009 that was actually written to my previous business. called Home Technology Solutions, and the check came from HTS from a builder, and I literally had $5,000. I can remember sitting there in my office of my home saying, do I pay this towards my mortgage of the house that's in foreclosure, or do I start this business?
Wow.
And that's when I started the business Hive. I made that decision. I called my dear friend Jeff Zielinski back up in New York, that was childhood, lifelong best buddies, and I told him I needed his help. He owned his own marketing firm, and I had him down, and literally I was like, man, I want to start this company. I don't want it to be Tampa Bay audio, video, HD, whatever. And I said, what do you think? And he's like, Jeff, I'm not instantly creative. Let me give some thought to it. And he ran it by his cousin, who's a big old hefty country girl. And she says, Hive, it's where a bee lives. It's where a bee works. So he calls me up and says, man, my cousin Chris told me she had an idea. What do you think about Hive? And I said, as long as I could be the beekeeper. And I joked with that because I remember meeting Nolan Lee. He was the owner of Monster Cable, the Monster Cable Company. And
Not really, but
there's
yeah.
there's a huge company out there called Monster Cables, and it's like interconnection cables for TVs,
okay.
Monster headphones, Monster speakers.
Wow.
There's a whole line that's called Monster, and surge protectors and all that. So they've been around for years. But this guy, I'll never forget, he handed me his business card, and everybody, president, vice president, CEO, founder, his said Head Monster. And I thought that was cool as hell. I still remember it to this day. And that's why on my business card, I wanted to say the beekeeper. So I wanted to be the beekeeper. So we've had fun with that over the years, even to this day. My wife is the president of the company, and she's the queen bee. And then all of our staff of managers. Yeah, the killer bees is the staff of managers.
And does yours say beekeeper?
Yeah,
Head beekeeper?
My business card says beekeeper. So that is my title. And literally every document I sign, legally or otherwise, I literally sign as the beekeeper. So I've always played with it over the years. And, we were very, very fortunate, and we got the company off the ground in 2009, 10, really, started marketing and promoting Hive in 2010. Fast forward to 2013, a friend of mine and colleague and buddy I went to high school with, Robert Foster, we started and collaborated on a company called Hive Outdoor Living. I started that in 2012-13. I think we got that off the ground, had the official grand opening in 2014. And I sold that to them and one of the partners, now current day partner, Ben Kelver, in 2017. Which was a wonderful thing for all of us. So they've really boomed the business, and that's called Hive Outdoor Living, and they still have that to this day. And then, during this whole COVID epidemic, there's been quite a surge in people investing in their homes and staying home. So their business just shot through the roof. And
yours too?
Yes.
Not as much.
We've done very well. I mean, we've had double-digit growth year over year. I mean, we're a small organization, man. We have 32 employees now, but we grew it from literally that foreclosed house and a storage unit, a 10 by 10 storage unit with a warehouse at the end of the street, and now we have 32 employees, 3 locations here, local in Tampa. Between our 2 design showrooms. We just got the exclusive to Bang & Olufsen, the speaker manufacturer, so that's pretty cool. And had
exclusive for Tampa?
Just exclusive for Tampa, yep. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was in your place. It's amazing speakers, amazing sound, amazing things out there. And so what's the revenue like? And if you're okay to share,
Sure.
what's the kind of bottom line? What are you doing now in sales and how much you take home?
Yeah, so with our business, currently this year we're approaching $7 million in sales, and the markup in our industry is anywhere if you're operating, full bottom line, if you're operating net at a 25% profit margin, you're in very, very, very rare air in our industry.
Yes.
So the average in our industry runs between 8 and 12%, and we do a little better than that.
Okay.
Currently we're running closer to about 15 to 18%,
Nice.
and
that's like $1 million right there.
Yeah.
Over $1 million. I mean, verifiably, massively into the millionaire status from just a little bit ago. Total disaster. Everything crashed.
Yeah.
Foreclosure. $6,000-$7,000 to your name. And now you're bringing home $1 million a year.
Yeah.
That's great.
And very honestly, what we're able to do for our community is super important, because the reality, man, like, yes, you can buy really nice cars and houses and travel places, and that's a lot of fun.
And I know you do that a lot, by the way. I see you enjoying yourself very often.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. You and your wife, you guys have a blast all the time. I see you there. I see you go here, go to Costa Rica, go to Mexico, go wherever. The trips, the watches, the stuff. I mean, you are enjoying your life, and I can tell, and I always see you smiling, laughing, having fun. So anyway,
that is totally
like a good life.
Thank you, and it's totally true. But I'll tell you something. It was funny. I was just on the phone with my nephew on the way over here, and my nephew's turned 23 today. Was his birthday, and I shot him a little care package, and we were on the phone together, and it was incredible. He's so funny, man. He was telling me about, Uncle Jeff, I really, between 22 and 23, I really feel like, I really didn't know anything at 22, and I've really got some solid direction, and, where my life's headed. I was like, God, I said, Nate, please share with me, man, because I'm at 50 and I have no clue, So, but my uncle advice, but I was like, Nate, just do something where you're always helping others, because there's just something special about being able to help other people, man, that is so much more fulfilling than anything that you can do in life. And I don't care how nice the car and how nice the watch. That's all nice stuff. Don't get me wrong. I don't take a vow of poverty, right? I love my dear friend Tom Cummings that always says, I'm going to help save the world from the first class seat, in the first class cabin. And him and Jim, our friends Jim Bridgeforth, and I love that. I love that mentality and mindset. So there's nothing wrong with working hard and achieving great things and enjoying some of the fruits of your labor. But at the end of the day, man, I don't think personally myself there's anything in my life that's more satisfaction that I get personally than truly being able to help another human being. And it's funny, man, I had this cognition and probably about 6 or 8 months ago, man. I could still see her turning the corner of my car, and it literally hit me like why I'm on this planet.
Wow.
And it's to help others.
Wow.
It was that simple. There's like nothing else, and truly, I don't care what it is. There's nothing, if somebody asked me for a good recommendation on a restaurant, I love to give that. If they, whatever that means to be able to help another person, I just get such satisfaction out of that, man. And there's nothing to me more important than that. And when I shared that with my nephew, it was like, it felt good. It was like, dude, whatever you're doing, man, just make sure that you put helping other people first, because the rest of the stuff will take care of itself. If you're helping your employees improve their position in life, it's going to automatically take care of yourself, Right. But when it's all about me, and everything I can get and squeeze all the flavor out of the gum, and I'm the only one that can get it all, that becomes very lonely very quick. And, at the end of the day, man, I don't want the final words to be, he was the most selfish son of a bitch we ever knew. So
that definitely not going to happen for you.
No.
So, and that brings me to a very interesting thing. When we were out in New York last month, you told me that you've had quite a history on the spiritual side in your life.
Yeah.
And you were a preacher for some time. And could you, how did this start, and where does this fit in? When, I'm seeing this whole thing, and wow, it's quite of an arc of your life. When did you get attracted to that concept of hey, helping other people? Hey, we're not just, flesh and bone, and how did that all start?
I know the day. I literally could tell you the day. I think since I'm a little guy, I was born and raised Catholic. I was an altar boy. I have the utmost of respect for Christianity and Catholicism. My mother is a very devout Catholic, and I'm so grateful for her, having something in her life that is so meaningful. And I was always in search. I was always in search for something that maybe for me was a better fit, right? Mm-hmm. And now I got my appreciation and my respect and that from that experience. But this particular moment in time, I had a Ford Expedition, and I'm going to guesstimate here. My son's 29 now. I want to guesstimate he was around 8 to 10 years old. He lived in Ocala with his mother, and I would go travel back and forth. I was the every other weekend Disney World dad. We were never married. We were never together, but I was, always a part of his life. And I would go up to get him, and I had a satellite dish on the roof of my car. I had the first satellite TV, those flat satellite dishes. Again, I was in the
And you
satellite
installed
business.
it.
So, well, I did
Okay.
most of it residentially, but to do trade shows, we'd pull this in, I'd open it up. It had 4 televisions in it. You'd flip open the back tailgate. There was a TV that came down. It had 4 other televisions throughout the car. It had a Sony PlayStation in it. And I'll never forget, I'm driving my son home from Tampa after a weekend, and you gasp in the back. What's the matter, Christian? Dad, every time you go under a bridge, so I go over under an overpass, the TV goes off. And I'm like, what? So your worst problem right now, you little spoiled son of a... But the reality is it came over me, who is spoiling him? I'm the one that put the 4 TVs in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that's doing this. So, and I felt a lack for myself that I was trying to make up to my child for my lack of being there for him in this monetary demonstration. I was constantly giving financially and buying the best clothes and the coolest sneakers and, the cell phone and everything else. And I was trying to make up for my lack of being present with my son with all this stuff. And I don't know where I heard it. I don't know if I read it in a greeting card, but I remember literally reading this: the greatest things in life aren't things. And, throwing a ball in the yard is going to be more important than buying him some stupid pair of sneakers that he won't even fit into in 6 months.
Yep.
And it came over me. And I'm going to take one step back. I was sitting in a client's home, and I knew the gentleman was a preacher of some sort because he was referred to me, and he wanted to get security cameras for his home. And he apologized that he was on a conference call and said, could I just give me 10 minutes? And he sat me down and got me a bottle of water. And I was sitting in his living room, and I saw this coffee table book. And I remember, I think that it was it said Uganda 2011. I think this was the previous year he had gone to Uganda, Africa. And I opened it up, and it said Kelly Green Global. And this gentleman's name was Kelly Green. And he had done these global outreach ministries to help on planet Earth. And it was a non-denominational. It didn't matter you were Jewish, Catholic, Scientologist, Christian. It didn't matter. He said, we're just going to go do the work of God to help other people. And so he comes back down from his conference call, and I'm like, Kelly, I saw this book, and like, how do you get involved in doing something like this? And he told me and shared with me what he had done. I said, I want to go. And I'll never forget, it really impinged on me. He goes, there's only one thing, Jeff. It's $3,500. I'm like, okay, great. Let's write you a check for $30. But there's only one condition. You can't pay more than half to go. What? I go, no, I can pay for the whole thing. No. You have to fundraise 50% of it. Because there's an 80-year-old woman that's not going to be able to make that trip physically, but her $20 donation is going to be meaningful to her and her participation in you going. Wow. I thought that was profound. And I went and fundraised from my clients, right? I felt a little like Robin Hood because my business, for those of you that don't know, I deal with mostly high net worth individuals and lovely high-end residential homes. So the cool thing was I went to some of these clients, told them about what I was up to, and it didn't take me long to raise the money, and I went on the trip. So why I digressed to that was because when my son had this little outburst, I immediately thought, man, I want to take him on this mission trip. And
Had you already gone?
I had gone at this time. I had gone to Uganda, Africa one time, and I stayed for 3 weeks in Jinja, Kampala, and Uganda. And listen, I tease, man. I was the security guard one day. I was the pharmacist the next, passing out the vitamins. I was the guy holding, the people in queue. I'll tell you something. It was one of the most single life-changing things I've ever done. And I'll never forget one of the doctors that said it's the line that never ends. Because you would see people that had walked for 6, 7, 8 miles to show up there to have their baby or themselves seen, and it might be the first medical doctor they've seen in years. And to have to say, I'm sorry, Aaron, you're the last person in line today, when the next person holding a baby has walked 7 miles to see, okay, well, just one more, hang on. And then the next person that's standing there with their baby with, you know, snot all over their face, and the baby is sick. Okay, just one, before you know it, it's like, where do you, so it was one of the most difficult things I'd ever had to confront in my entire life. How fortunate we are, and, we can all get into complaining about, our position and that, but I then came back, and I'll tell you, in my industry, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. It's really tough to truly see starving people, right? One of the days my job was to make this, what appeared to be porridge-like oatmeal, I wouldn't even know what to call it, this big, huge vat of it. And there was a line of children as far as the eye could see, but we only had 6 plastic cups. And you would scoop it out, you'd give a half of a plastic cup to a child. They would literally have to drink it down, and you'd refill it and hand it to the next one in line. And I remember kind of being reprimanded or corrected that I was giving a full scoop, and I could only give a half a scoop. And it's like, this may have been literally the only meal that child would eat all day. So I went from experiencing that, and it's one hell of a tough confront, to then coming back and then hearing Mr. and Mrs. Smith tell me about how their third television in their guest house, in their 6,500 square foot guest house attached to their 27,000 square foot home, the Blu-ray player wasn't working on the guest bedroom TV. It was a little bit hard for me to
Wow.
get back into the swing of things. So anyhow, I then had this experience with my own son, and I wanted to quickly correct and have my son realize. And his mother at the time thought it was a little heavy to go to Uganda. So I started right here at my local, I met up with a group that was doing missionary work right here locally. It was called the Good Samaritan over off of Florida Avenue. It was a homeless shelter that I began every Saturday taking my son to feed the homeless. And that's where I met some wonderful people that invited us to go to church with them. And we subsequently went to church. I actually went through this program called Master Pastor Internship Program. Actually in Uganda, I went back to Uganda the following year, and I preached in front of over 500 people and there in Uganda.
Did your son go with you?
No, my son actually ended up going the following year. Now he's 16 years old. I took him right because his mother was comfortable with, right after the earthquake, about 4 months after the earthquake in Haiti, was the first mission trip I took my son on. And Aaron, I got to tell you something, man. There's a lot of things I wish I had a redo button, a lot of areas of my life, whether it be, as a father, as a spouse, there's certain things I wish I could have a redo. But I will tell you, I'm proud to say, arguably the greatest thing I've ever done as a parent for my child was to expose him to that experience, because you don't have to say a word. And I don't care how many times you drive around in your, new fancy Tesla or Range Rover or Lamborghini, or, you drive up whatever, and go to your gorgeous home and your gorgeous neighborhood. Even for us, even the lowest of middle class here is so much more fortunate than 95% of the world. And we just never, ever stop to appreciate it, because a lot of times we're comparing ourselves to the neighbor, this, that, the friends, the social, economic. But when I went there with my son, you don't have to say a word, man. And, he goes to school and he sees the kid with the new Air Jordans and the watch and showing up in the high school parking lot with the Porsche. And there's always this jockeying for position. And you go there, man, and people are struggling to survive. And, food. And, you don't see people, complaining. You see people just wishing for an opportunity, and hardworking, wonderful people that just literally have no opportunity. And to see my son come back and what he would do, I'll never forget, we took a father and his daughter that were both homeless and living in an 8-foot by 6-foot room in a homeless shelter. And my son wanted to give some of his school clothes that he got to help her. And he wanted to he asked me to take him to Busch Gardens, after that experience. He started to realize how fortunate he was to have his parents that could afford to put a meal on the table, no less, fancy clothes and more than that. So, again, I can look back and say that was definitely a defining moment in my life as a parent. And, for all the things I loused up, that was one for the good guy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so you also went as a preacher, no?
Yeah.
And you had like a signature sermon.
Yeah.
I know you talked about it. I literally already forgot, but I remember it was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
what was your mess? I mean, now you've been through life. You've been through a time when you lost everything, when you made poor choices. But even then, at your lowest, you're at a much higher place than, again, as you said, 95% of where you were. And so, what were you telling these people?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll tell you, you certainly feel, you never start a business to fail, right? And, at the end of it, there's disappointment, there's failure. At the moment, sometimes I can look back now and glean from the wonderful, wonderful experiences I learned. There's one thing, now being the old, wise 50-year-old, I can look back and times that I thought were the worst thing that happened to me, I can truly look back and say how grateful I am for those things that happened, because I've learned much more in my life from the mistakes I've made than any of the pats on the back that I've gotten from the things that have sometimes just pure luck have gone right, And I share this all the time. If you play baseball and you hit 3 balls out of 10, you literally make the all-star team. You hit 4 out of 10 over your career, you're in a Hall of Fame. As a business owner, you only make 4 out of 10 decisions correct in a business, highly probable you're out of business, And, we as business owners, I alluded to that point earlier. I like to chalk a lot up to, man, I work hard, but I also, I know that luck plays a lot in it, opportunity, and it's like it's amazing. The harder I work, the more the luck seems to be there. But the reality is, I don't think there's any entrepreneur out there that can't say there hasn't been a percentage of it that's been just good old-fashioned dumb luck, being in the right place at the right time, whether it's the right product, whether it was the right timing on when they started the business or exited the business. There's many things that go into it, and the neat thing is today, I took it so personally, the failure of my first business. I mean, yes, I sold it, and yes, we were getting a payout, and then yes, we seemingly lost everything. And, I had a personal situation with my father at the time passed away, and it was a wonderful time for some incredible reflection, and I can remember the little sermon I wrote to graduate this master pastor internship. You wrote a sermon and you preached the sermon publicly, and it was a play on words of that Can You Hear Me Now, of that Verizon commercial at the time, and it was a little play on the words, and I entitled it "Who's Your Daddy?" And my point of the sermon was, who do you turn to, man, in your time of need? And where do you look? Do you look at alcohol and drugs and all the other traps that are out there, or where do you put your focus in your time of need? And I said, who's your daddy? And like the sermon being like, can you hear me now? Like when you plug yourself into that source of inspiration and you plug yourself in to a power greater than yourself, the beauty is you can find that, there can be great success out there if you avoid the pitfalls of life. And, one last thing, and not to put a somber twist and note to it, my father committed suicide in 2006. And that was...
And that's what actually we met on a fundraiser, right? The Scientology Church here, which was a fundraiser to stop the drugging and these kinds of things. And I was going to also go there. So
Yeah, that's right.
we have a common losses in this field, and so.
Yeah. So I mean that my father committed suicide in 2006, alarming to all of us.
You didn't expect it.
Oh, completely non-expected at all. I mean, just absolutely the most unexpected, especially because my dad was always such a, son, if you're flat on your ass, it's a good place to be. There's only one place to go up, right? So he was always encouraging, always, there. And it, like, now it almost seemed like totally phony to me. Like, was he that little duck under the water paddling, like looked like it was all together on the surface. And I was like, man, I here I am at the time. Good God, well, give me the answer, God. What happened? This wasn't my dad. Like, dude, I mean, now anger. I was so pissed off with him. I felt coward. I can't believe, his grandchildren. I have my older sister, and his children and grandchildren. Like, he didn't see that to live for, and it's so personal. And the reality was, I end up getting on a flight. Almost probably 18 months after my father passes. I'm on a flight, and I'm on Southwest Airlines, and my buddy's sitting on the window. I'm sitting on the aisle, waiting on one last passenger. We're in row number 1, and sure enough, she says, "Is anybody sitting there?" Oh, damn it. So I move aside and let her sit down, and I was like, man, I thought we were going to have this beautiful leg room and space and to travel. And very, very chatty, conversational lady, and obviously if you hear me talk now, I'll talk to the wall if it won't talk back. So we get to chatting away, and long story short, she asked me what I do. I tell her, I'm in smart home technology, I do security and da-da-da-da. I need your card. And very abruptly, and I was, okay, I'll get my bag, and she's like, my life's going to be under attack. I'm a clinical pharmacologist, and I'm a doctor of pharmacy, basically. I've been trained in Eastern and Western medicine, and I'm proving that there's a simple test that can be taken because of these psychiatric drugs that the human body cannot metabolize. 25% of people literally become clinically psychotic based on these 2 drug interactions. And it's a simple test that allows to see if the liver and pancreas can metabolize these drugs. If not, people become suicidal and homicidal because of this. I'm like, this woman has no idea what my story is. Wow. So I sit up in my seat and pay a little closer attention. And she goes on and on and on to tell me about the story. She's talking about all these kids that we've had all these incidences and shootings in schools and everything else. And at the time, she was like, do you realize 10 out of the last 12 school shootings, every one of the kids 10 of them were on psychiatric drugs. The other 2 are sealed cases that, we're going to go out on a limb and say if they weren't, what would the percentage and probability be that all 12 of them were on psychiatric drugs? And she's like, it's because of the drug interactions that these individuals cannot metabolize the drug, creates anywhere from a 3 to 5 times greater concentration in the bloodstream, and boom.
And all the tests for these drugs, they're for one single drug. They're never tested more than one, ever.
Well, and listen.
Right? I think I'm correct about that.
Listen, the reality is you can manufacture any test that you want and any statistic to prove whatever point you're trying to prove, right? So, and you can test or not test. You can use different sample groups. The games that get played on there is the most horrific atrocity to humanity ever of our time. And anyhow, the reality with my dad, this woman shares, and I literally say to her, I said, it's so funny you're mentioning this to me. My father just committed suicide, and at the time, like 18 months ago. And she was like, was he on psychiatric drugs? I was like, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea what the hell, I'm living in Florida. My father's living in upstate New York. I had no idea what medicines he's taking. And she's like, do you have his autopsy? And I was like, not with me. So here I am in the airplane. But so I remember the plane landed, and we landed in Vegas. She got out. We were flying on to Salt Lake City to go skiing. And I remember calling my sister and be like, Amy, I need a copy of Dad's autopsy and death certificate. 2 weeks later, I brought it to her office. It's actually right down here in Clearwater. It's called Botanical Resource, and I brought the autopsy. And this woman damn near jumped up on her desk and said, I'm telling you right now, between the Zoloft and the Paxil, and she began to run down and describe my dad and his behavior like my father was sitting right there.
Wow.
So to me, of all things at that moment, Aaron, it was honestly like the prayer had been answered. I'd found my answer and immediately flipped the switch from anger with my father to compassion.
Wow.
Because I realized that my dad went in there trusting the man in the white coat, and unfortunately got one hell of a disservice done to him. And I know if it wasn't for that and that cocktail of drugs, my dad would still be here today. And I have then, here's where the silver lining is to me in the whole deal. I have now dedicated my life to educating myself, my family, my friends, and anybody that'll listen, to the true nature of psychiatric drugs. And they don't help anybody. And literally people get on these psych drugs and can't get off of them. They're put on them for years. And I always tease people, like, there's no biological evidence. It's, oh, you feel depressed, you feel this, take this. And then 2 years later, we're tweaking the dose and we're this and that. I mean, if you went in with a broken arm and I gave you a drug and now I could no longer feel your arm, and then 3 years later I said, we got to adjust the drug dosage so you can't feel both arms. And then I said, oh, this arm's still not fixed, but there's no solution in that. There's absolutely no solution. The only thing it does is make these people literally dependent on these drugs, profiting from that, profiting from the insurance, and all they are looking to do is to find more codes to be able to make sure that they recover more of the money from the insurance companies to continue to have a wider net to cast to get more people on these psychiatric drugs. And, I've seen what it's done. And funny, then I was introduced through WISE, the business arm, if you will, and consulting arm of Scientology. I was introduced in my business to that and to some of the administrative technology of L. Ron Hubbard, and it became incredibly helpful in my business. And I got to see personal, real, live results of the improvement in my business. And it can't do anything but personally help improve you. We're not compartmentalized. Like, here I am over here. I'm this totally honest, ethical, great business guy, and I'm a totally dishonest, unethical husband. And, we're not compartmentalized like that. And what I started to see is a wonderful help in my business that I then started to translate into my own personal life. And then when I saw what a huge, huge, huge stand that the Church of Scientology and specifically the Citizens Commission on Human Rights was doing to help in the area of psychiatric drugging and the abuses of human rights, I was just all on. And I made a donation at the time. And this is funny, I've told this many times. I donated $10,000, Aaron, and for a good Catholic boy that probably never put more than $20 in a collection plate in my life, this was, I thought they were going to name a building after me, right?
Yeah.
So I've teased and said that, but it was the truth to me. It was like, where's my name going to be on the parish hall for a $10,000 donation? And, I realized it's David and Goliath, man. And why does Scientology come under such great attack? Is because they're going up against the Goliath and the pocketbook and the checkbook of these pharmaceutical companies. And Scientology really wants to help the able become more able. It really truly wants to help people. And when your MO is to destroy people and make them completely reliant on these drugs at the bottom line of trillions of dollars, the funny thing is, Hive is my catalyst. My business is what I do to earn my living, to be able to support my efforts to be able to help fight against it. So I can truly look at the situation that happened with my dad. Would I give up anything just to have one more lunch with my father? Yes, I would. You could take it all. Just give me, 30 minutes at a lunch with him. But that can't be had So I will do my best and make him proud and make my family proud to be able to continue to partner myself with friends like yourself that continue to fight every day to really help. And yes, the money's great and it's needed because if we don't have that energy in the form of dollars and cents, we can't fight against it. So to be around a group of people that are sane and awesome individuals that are concerned truly with the humanitarian cause for their own staff, because it starts here. It's not just helping some phantom individual that I'll never know, but all the way down. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the group.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
And
welcome.
this lady next to you on the airplane, is her name? Can you say her name?
Sure, it was Dr. Pamela Seafield. And here's something else, and I missed this point. So I come into Scientology, I make this donation, and they give me a DVD. And it was called the Industry of Death was the name of the DVD. And to be quite honest with you, and I'm ashamed to say I own an AV company and I didn't have a Blu-ray or DVD player hooked up at the time. I think it was a little old school, but I asked my son to hook up a DVD player. And this is probably 2 months after I made that donation and gave that DVD. I literally was sitting home on a Friday night one night. My son hooked a DVD, rigged it up for me to hook a DVD player up. And I put that DVD in there because I wanted to watch it. And literally, probably halfway through the video, they had these different opinion leaders and spokespeople speaking out against the psychiatric drugging. And one of those people and opinion leaders on that disc was Pamela Seafield, the woman that sat next to me years earlier on that airplane. So talk about coming full circle and feeling like my prayer had been answered. Not only was it revealed to me what happened with my dad that gave me comfort and understanding, but then I was introduced to this incredible group of people that are truly doing something on this planet to fight against it. And it's going to take a lot more time and a lot more money and a lot more awareness on the behalf, but we're already seeing some major strides here, even in the state of Florida, even with the Baker acting of children and drugging them against the parents' consent and knowledge. It's 32,000. I was just in a meeting the other night. 32,000 cases of elementary kids, literally in the year, I believe it was 2021 or 2022.
The last year they have data for. Right.
32,000 elementary school kids Baker acted and detained, and majority without even the knowledge or consent of the parent. So we have gotten legislation changed, and it's been a major push by some partners and fellow group members that have literally changed the legislation in the state of Florida to at least make it the awareness that now, before a police officer or truant officer can detain them, they have to make the parent aware. And so at least that step alone, we want to reduce this to an insignificant level. And in my opinion, one child at an elementary school detained against their will without the knowledge of a parent and without the consent of a parent, that's one too many.
It's an atrocity.
It is.
I actually met someone who the mom and the kid spoke only Russian. The kid is in school. They can't understand the kid. And they understood something. Who knows? Someone misunderstood something. The kid gets Baker acted. This is like a 6-year-old kid. They don't even know what the kid is saying. How does someone make a decision understanding what the person's saying? Because they said something that's like, it was total confusion. The parent is on the phone and cannot even get the kid out. This topic is intense, and it is probably the worst thing that exists here in Florida, and people don't even know about it, really.
Yeah, and on top of it, where we missed the boat on it, and no joke, is the fact that these institutions are paid by the state. So if they detain an individual, they get literally $3,500 per day to detain them, and it's a mandatory 3-day detainment. So what they found is that it's actually people are
$10,000 per kid.
per individual, so
Individual.
child or adult. So here's the other thing. If I drug them into oblivion and they can't even say their name, now how much longer are they detaining these individuals and getting paid for this?
And how do you know they're billing this
Well,
amount?
it's funny that you say that. I actually had a client, and it took everything in my power not to push the guy off his own balcony, that was literally telling me how excited he was that he got in with these different politicians and was able to obtain the licensing, because most of it is owned by these large, massive hospital conglomerates. But this guy individually up in Hernando County ended up being able to get the licensing, and they would literally purchase the facility for $250,000 a bed. That's what the value of that license is, because those facilities are just absolute cash cows. And he was the one that told me this entire, he told me the entire business model, if you will, of, I mean, in my opinion, it's like, to profit off that, it's just, it's disgusting. And I've literally personally had firsthand experience with it on 2 occasions where I've had to get CCHR, the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, to literally have their attorneys send they emailed, and within 40 minutes, we could not get this individual, this lady, she was in her early 50s, was being detained against her will. Her children couldn't do her adult children could not do anything. They were referred to me through a friend of a friend, and I made one phone call to the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, and within 40 minutes they had her at the door, bags packed, ready to go. They wanted no part of CCHR. Yep. The reality is, because the fact that they make this money by detaining these individuals and get the money from the state, they're no interest in getting that individual help. Yeah. There's nothing they're doing to help. They're holding them there, against their will, and drugging the living hell out of them. So
I understand. I had a similar experience. Someone who was detained, they were taken, and we were in the hospital because I was called to, hey, it looks like they're being kept there. So I arrived. This was unreal, and I've never told this story. We were there, and I was like, let's go. And they said, no, you can't go. They said we can't go. And I said, they said you can't go. According to what? Are they like the police? Or that? We're in this hospital. We're here on... The people had arrived and gotten there on volunteer. They're like, hey, I want to get some checkup, whatever. And they said, no, you can't go. I said, let's go. They're like, are you sure, Aaron? Or you can't just go. I got everyone and I said, let's walk out. 15 feet out of the hospital room. We're going down, and person after person starts gathering. By the time I'm down, let's say 20 feet down, there was about 20 people surrounding us. I said, where are you going? Because I saw people walk, mounting, and I just keep going. This is not a prison. So we're going, and they said, sir, you cannot leave. And I said, what's stopping us from leaving? And she said, well, it's the Baker Act one. I said, so has this person been Baker Acted? It says, no. Pass me the paper. She grabs the paper, signs and says, you cannot go. In front of my face. So they were stopping us from going before there was even anything signed. We were escorted back into the room. This is literally like a prison. I went, got on the phone with CCHR. I got them to write a letter and saying, hey, this person's family member will be responsible for them. They sent the letter, the email, to this hospital's legal team, whatever, legal email. We were out of there in 15 minutes. Yeah. Forcibly detained. I mean, even before it's even signed, before there's even a law. Yeah. Anyway, so when there's a lot of money involved, I'm sure they have protocols and this, but it is, guys, anyway, Baker Act, for real. If you have a family member that has been Baker Acted, contact Citizens Commission on Human Rights. these guys will get your family members out of there. And
No
and
doubt.
I want to say that it just to kind of recap on this, when you're in Haiti,
Mhm.
when you're in Uganda, there is a level of poverty and misery, and that it's almost unspeakable, right? As you explained. Now, when you go here, I think there's a different type where I feel like the amount of people that are drugged in this is massively high, but people don't see it over there. You can see the problem. You're like, we can do something about this. But in this case, imagine your own father, and you don't even know what caused that. We're kept blind, as you're saying, through this massive billion-trillion-dollar industry to look away and not understand. So there's a different type of misery. There's a different type of going down, but we all share problems, and if we can identify like what is happening, I think we can have a resurgence in this country more than ever, because I know people who are in a similar scenario. Anyway, so
Listen,
I just want to say it's just a different
yeah.
type. You know,
One thing I will say this, man. I would almost and not disagree with you, but like I actually would say far greater misery in our country. I was more blown away with how happy the people were there.
Oh wow! See, I
Now,
haven't been.
Less fortunate.
I haven't been.
Less fortunate. Not of all the stuff, and I remember it was funny because I had an iPad. Like this is going back in the day, and the very first time I went, whatever, and 2000. God, it was probably 8, 10 where I went for the first time, and I had an iPad, and to show the kids, and the crazy part was, I never forget, they wanted to see Michael Jackson. So that was really cool to see Michael Jackson. But these kids would fashion a soccer ball out of literally taking banana leaf. Man, if we kicked it, it would break our foot. But you never saw more genuinely happy people.
Wow.
And they didn't want, but here's the crazy point I'm going to make. Look around this planet. The only place there's psych drugs? Where there's money. When there's no money present, they're not helping this small village in Mexico, our little place down in Costa Rica. They're not psych drugging. The higher on the social economic bracket these countries are, the more you'll find psych drugs. The more you'll find, and the reality is, the more you're going to find where there's insurances able to pay for it and the individuals being able to pay for the drugs. When you truly have contentment and you're enjoying being present with the person in front of you and just having a conversation, not inundated with video games and content and this and that, these kids literally playing ball together, being together. I mean, buddy, I could tell you stories for days. I mean, I'm in Uganda. I was in this little town in Haiti, and literally sitting there, and there was 40 kids sitting there watching us eat. We're rebuilding this orphanage, and they're sitting. I mean, try sitting there eating, man, with 40 starving kids not eating. It was like, here's my plate, man. And they gave us a big old loaf of bread thing, and I handed the bread, and I won't even lie, man. That was not my nature.
Mm-hmm.
These kids broke the bread and were sharing it with each other. And I was like, what? Because they were all together. There was just the most beautiful togetherness. When I was in Uganda, I was doing the videotaping, and what it was called God is Grace, and it was this. It was Kelly Green's wife here, and his wife Beth had set up with a pastor's wife over in Uganda, and they would give $40 a month. A woman here in the United States, I think the only single guy, because it was mostly women, because here's the crazy part. So many of the men affected by AIDS and disease and that, so oftentimes if you helped a woman, she might be taking care of 2 or 3 or 4 different generations of children. It might be her brother's kids and her kids and, multiple kids. So you help a mom, you're probably helping 6 to 8 other people. So you would sponsor a woman over there. and they had different things that they would teach them, like livestock trade and sale and that of livestock. They would do like a little entrepreneurial business, like selling charcoal. One was like doing seamstress type of work and sewing, and the other one was doing hair and like braiding hair and things of that nature. And they would hire these different instructors, if you will. So your $40, $5 of it went to pay the instructor. Okay, literally $25 of that money got put away in a little savings. Okay, and then the other money, $10, went directly to them, so they could use that money as they were going through the course, kind of to help them. I got the privilege of going over there after this had been in effect for a year, and these women had gotten the money. We were the film crew of one. So I'm here on the camera. I would go there, and Beth would have a picture of the family back from the United States that was the sponsor of that woman that had been giving him $40. Now, $40 a month. So what, was that a good lunch or a bad dinner? I mean, $40. And Aaron, you would have swore to God, the reaction here in the U.S., you would have probably had to give somebody $400,000 a month, buy them a new house and 4 new cars, the reaction that we got to these people. I literally had to learn how to edit video because my entire video was me crying behind the camera. Literally, hear me sniffling, because you would walk up these, and these people, the women would run out. And now they would have 2 outfits for their entire life. They'd have one that they wore every day and their Sunday's best. Mm-hmm. They would break off a little branch of the bougainvillea flower and run out, getting down on their knees, bowing to it. We're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like it freaked me out. Mm-hmm. How grateful and gracious they were for someone across the world helping them. I appreciate you giving me all this time, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I will share gratitude that you came, shared your time with us, and shared your story, which I think is a spectacular thing. And I honestly do. I want to, next time you go, like we have 3 kids, and I'll tell you that this is an important topic. It is an important topic because here where it's so many things are hidden, and I think we need to. Anyway, I want to go on a trip.
Yeah, listen, I have a foundation right now personally, and honestly, it stemmed from my very first trip with my son to Haiti back there, and so we actually started. I bought property down there, and we have a dear friend of ours, Nicholas Victorin. He's now the past mayor of the city of Pignon, Haiti. It's a small town, about 44,000 people. It's in a country. It's about 4 hours from Port-au-Prince, about an hour and a half from Cape Haitian, the 2 major cities in Haiti. And Nicholas, we helped get through college, and he became the youngest elected official ever in the history of the country of Haiti. Wow. He now heads up our foundation down there, and we've been fortunate enough to buy property down there. And I went down there it's been about 4 years ago when I went down there, and we wanted to help teach the children study technology and help education, because it's $15 a month, and more than 85% of children aren't in school because of that fee and can't afford to close.
School costs $15 a month over there?
Yes. So, and in this particular area, more than 85% do not go. So the very first thing I went down there, and to tell you I was a bit naive is an understatement. So we come down there with the books. We came down there with the supervisors to train the teachers, and boy, I'm all excited. And we get there, and within under 5 minutes, I'm like, put the books back in the truck. Stop unloading them. You cannot teach anyone anything that is starving. Mm-hmm. I joked and said, do you want to change a child's religion in 1 minute? Put the platter of food out there, and they'll be whatever the hell you want them to be, right? That wasn't the game I was trying to play. So I shifted gears. I bought approximately 12 acres of land here, And I then made it very simple. If you came to work on the farm in exchange for your time and your energy of working on the farm, I would supply the food and the seeds and the water. And we've now, it's been 2 years ago, we have the only solar powered well in the region. So previously they had two wells and both the handles were broken on the manual wells. So they were literally scaling the side of probably a 60 to 80 foot cliff to go down to the riverbed. And I'm not joking, there'd be cows and dogs and people doing their dishes and cleaning their clothes right literally beside people that are getting the same water for drinking. But I'll tell you something. We have now gotten a wonderful group, and I get constant updates. So we just purchased 1,200 chickens from Dominican Republic, chicks to raise, and they just sent me, as a matter of fact, it's been less than a week ago, we got an update on 400 mango tree, and they're constantly giving us updates about what the new things they're planning and that, and to see the pictures of kids, man, plowing with oxen, and it's just incredible to see that they're out there weeding and watering and fertilizing and this, and then the exchange is that they can have any of the food and their family can have any of the food as long as they'll exchange for putting in the time to do it. So that's been a big success for us, and we still want to get back down there and now make sure they're well enough nourished so that we can get to the next level of helping put some study tech and some educational technology down there to help. And listen, man, it takes big-hearted people. It's not necessarily the guy with the biggest checkbook, because oftentimes those guys don't show up or those gals don't show up. I can tell you a lot more. My greatest thing that I've done in my entrepreneur journey is to remember to give back, because the minute I give back, it's amazing how other opportunities are opened up to me that maybe I would have never had or experienced. So that's probably, I'm a very, very big believer in the more you give back, the more that is given to you and the more that's expected of you to help. So I appreciate your willingness to go down there and help, and it's an awesome experience, man. Yeah. It's an awesome experience, and I promise we'll take you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. And then, okay, for people listening, let's say either they want to go on a trip like that or just contact you, or they need a new TV. Any of these?
Yeah.
Where would somebody reach you?
Yeah, my email is jeff@hivestyle.com, JEFF@HIVESTYLE, Jeff@hivestyle. My business is www.hivestyle.com. So if you'd like any of our services, we'd be more than honored and happy to help you. And I would love to put a group of people together to go see Nicholas. And there's actually a plane that flies out weekly out of Fort Pierce, the other side of Florida. That's a missionary plane that flies from Fort Pierce into the little city of Pinon. Wow. So we can fly directly there. It's a wonderful, it's a charity driven. The guy does it for just, nominal cost. But it's literally to have humanitarian aid still there impacting Haiti. Haiti's in very tough shape right now with all the corruption and criminality, but that area is a very safe area, and it's doing something, man. It's tough because honestly, when I got started, I was like, dude, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner. How the hell can I help on a medical mission trip? And let me tell you, there's just so many ways you can help. Yeah, some people can help by writing a check, but other people can help by, like I said, manning the line outside of the makeshift doctor's office, or being the guy that passes out the vitamins or the medication, or just being there to listen and talk to people and share. It's amazing, man. The human spirit's a pretty beautiful thing, man. And you find ways to communicate when you can't even speak the language. But I'll tell you something, and I'm gonna shut up after this, but the reality is, man, I just think the human spirit is such a beautiful thing. And I think really most people, when you really get to know them, it's not about their religion. It's not about the color of their skin. And, if you're just there talking human being to human being or communicating in whatever fashion, you find out that the majority of people are good, kind, loving people, and they want the same things that you want, man. They want their family to be safe and successful, and they want to flourish and prosper in their lives and do better than maybe the generation before, and they're just, doing their best, and they want to be happy and they want to be healthy. And it's tough when you see a very, very, very small minority of people in every area that want some very radical, whatever you want to call, right or left. It's like, it's amazing how much common ground you can find when, there's admiration, love, and respect of just one human to the next. But, I hate seeing the news over sensationalize all the negative all the time. It's like, it seems like that's what sells, and I just wish that wasn't the case, because I think, we should spend a lot more time, loving and respecting and having fun conversations like this of what we can do to help each other, because it's a lot more uplifting than all the negativity that's going on.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Jeff. And
Right.
and honestly, you're doing a spectacular job. Really, I mean, it's just really amazing the things you've done, and for sure, your father will be extremely proud of you.
Awesome, man.
I mean,
Thanks so much.
For sure.
I appreciate it,
everything
buddy.
you've done. Is
Love you, buddy.
awesome. Thank you, man.
Thanks so much.